Have you ever felt like there was something more real? Have you ever felt like there's something deeper, or felt like things aren't the way they should be? Are you like me at 50 years old, and the reality of your life is at least half over, and what are you going to do with the other half of your life? Or the reality of aging parents and trying to spend as much time with them as possible? Or the reality that your kids are growing up and they're not always going to be little kids, and they're going off to college and they're going to get married. And today we're going to talk about reality. So, welcome to the Crafted Life, where we are built on purpose and shaped by faith. My name is Jake, and today we're going to talk about reality. And on this podcast, we kind of couch everything within these four boundaries of reality, durability, community, and legacy. And so we're going to do this one specifically on reality, and we're going to do more podcasts on the other three later. But it's very interesting how they're all very interconnected and intertwined, and we're going to kind of relate some of that together. But today we're going to focus on reality. And the definition I came up with, I'm going to flip over here, that I kind of just wrote down as just thinking about this is what can truly be known and trusted as far as a definition for reality. And when I looked it up in the dictionary, I thought it was a good definition as well. It says the world or state of things as they actually exist, opposed to idealistic or a notional idea, right? And as I get older, as just a husband, as a dad, uh, as a follower of Christ, I find that as I get older, reality, uh, it's like going to the optometrist, and is it right? One or two, one or two. Everything just seems to get a little bit clearer and a little bit more precise and a little bit more in focus as I age. And reality starts really, well, it can be one of two things. It can hit you in the face and knock you down, or it can help you along the way, or it can do both for sure. And I think being honest with ourselves and living in reality rather than what could be, or even today, um, what maybe we would like, or maybe just kind of a fantasy world, or maybe just like it could be this way or it could be that way. Living within the reality of what we do and what we are and whose we are, and what we really value in reality, and why is it even important, right? I believe, and I'm fairly well convinced that when I'm talking about reality, what I really want to base that on is Jesus Christ. Every once in a while, I'll hear, well, that's your truth, that's your reality. And I really do believe, and I'm learning that reality, although it can be subjective, it's very objective. I can see how other people, even though they may not call it one thing, they're experiencing the same thing I'm experiencing. They're going through the same things I am going through as a human being. The human condition doesn't change from Minnesota to Wyoming to Kentucky to California to China to France. It doesn't. All of us as human beings experience the same things, have the same problems. Um, we just come up with different solutions. Now, I do believe in my heart, and I am thoroughly convinced that Jesus Christ is reality. And let me explain that a little bit. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Um, he says, in the beginning was the Word, and that word is logos. That means what was spoken or what can be known. That is Jesus. He's the bread of life. He's living water. He's all these things that give us who we are and explain so much of our condition, and why we are the way we are. And in just that, it's reality. It explains the reality of who God is. Like, who is He? What does He want from us? Why has He created things in this world the way it is? And why are we even in the condition we are in the first place? He tells us who we are. And again, I think what He says about us matches my experience and what I see when I look out over different places over 50 years. Um, how that lines up, I see that that lines up with reality as well. I think the most amazing part is not just the reality of who God is and reality of who we are, but the reality of how we can actually have a relationship and what that truly means, where we are not adding things or taking away things from how that happens, from just our having our faith in the Lord and following Him and having a heart that says, I want a relationship with you, and that I want you to be my King, and not adding anything else to that or taking away anything else from that. It's so amazing. Um, and I think if you don't start with a foundation in reality and true reality, that's where we fall down. And I think a lot of us as men really do live out of a false reality. And that could be, for example, um, what you do is who you are, right? Uh, Usually when we meet someone for the first time, we say, what do you do? And we put a lot of stock in what our job is, what our career is, and how we accomplish that. And usually sometimes when that goes away, or we don't feel like our boss is seeing what we're doing, or we're let go, or we need to move on, it can be really disheartening, because now that identity of what we do is now gone, right? Where it should be the opposite, where our identity defines what we do, not what we do defines our identity. Um, Keeping up with other people, right? And keep trying to keep pace. An example is, man, in reality, I'm pretty slow. Like when it comes to fixing things and getting things done, uh, sometimes it takes me a long time. It really does. But I work at it. It teaches me diligence. Definitely teaches me patience, for sure. And I think those qualities in reality are better than just getting something done fast and thinking I have to keep pace with everybody else. Because, for example, even social media, right? We have to look like, even as guys, like we compare ourselves to other people. Like, what are they building? What are they doing? What are they making? How come I can't do that? How come I can't build that? How come I can't make that as well or as fast or both as someone else? And that's really not what it's about. I think another example would be, I don't want to call it imposter syndrome, but it's this idea, if someone really truly found out who I was, they'd be disappointed, right? And I think, and I've experienced that in the past. I think other men have experienced that in the past for sure. Of, if they only really knew who I truly was, uh, they wouldn't like me. And that is a false identity. I really believe it is, because God has created you in a certain way, um, with certain loves, with certain gifts, with certain passions, and they're only yours. And living in that reality of, God did create you. God, you are built on purpose. One of our taglines of this podcast, right? Built on purpose. Not only are we building things on purpose and working towards that goal, we ourselves are also built on purpose, for unique reason, for unique cause. And I think a lot of the times I forget that, and I think as men we forget that as well. I think one of the biggest ones is, especially for guys, right? I have to prove myself. I've got to prove that I'm good enough. I have to prove that I'm worthy enough. I have to prove that I have what it takes. I have to prove all kinds of things. And I do this to other men. And even though I know, uh, as a Christ follower, that it's only through the work of the blood of Jesus Christ that I have a relationship with them, somehow I think I need to prove myself to God that I'm worthy enough, that I'm good enough, that I'm a good enough son, right? But I think of it this way, and Francis Chan brought this up, and I'll probably put this in down below for you to take a look at, because he struggled with this. How I think even about my kids. Like, what if my kids thought I only loved them like 90%, or they were doing a pretty good job, but they doubted how much I actually cared for them. And I think, how much more, let's say it this way, for as much as I love my kids and I would lay my life down for them and give them good things and want the best for them, how much more does God love me? And am I living out of that? Because that should be reality, right? That should be what I'm living out of. That should be what's overflowing out of me. Not that I have to prove something, or I have to do something, or I have to show God, look what I'm doing for you, God. Like, I'm doing a good job. What do you think? No, no, no. And I forget all the time. I really do. Living out of God, you have a relationship with me. You're my father. I'm adopted by you. You died for me. How am I doing that out of love and just complete adoration of you that's flowing out of me? Because that's really where it should be coming from. But I just want to tie this concept of reality back into this podcast when it comes to work and working with our hands. God created work even before the fall of Adam and Eve. God made us to work, and I get great satisfaction when I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. Mike, and hopefully you've experienced this reality as well. You even forget what time it is sometimes, which is just magical to be working and enjoying what you're doing, and even sometimes not even paying attention to the clock, and it's 3, 4, 5 hours later. I think that's what we were made to do. The reality of that we actually were made by God. We're not an accident. We're just not didn't show up randomly. We were made on purpose for a purpose, and that's just reality that sometimes just doesn't sink in. And one of the biggest ones is that you've been given a unique, and kind of related to that, but more specifically, you've been given a God-given identity that is only yours, that maybe you don't even know yet, right? And I would encourage you, if you've never done this, like say, God, what do you call me? What do you think of me? And sometimes we think that can be a scary thing, but God's answer is always so amazing that we don't have to think of it as in fear. That God wants good things for us, and that God has given His true identity to us and calls us our true identity, and to live out of that is incredible. And I'm going to touch on that on more podcasts. I think it's something that we don't look at as men very much, and I think it's super important that we do. Now, for me, and I think a lot of men, doing something physical and working with your hands brings reality into sharper focus for so many reasons, right? It could be making mistakes, right? Or learning something about something you never knew about, and understanding it even more and in depth and in ways you didn't understand, whether that's remodeling, let's say a bathroom, or building a piece of furniture, or doing something in your yard where you're doing some landscaping, or building a project for your kids. The chance for me to learn something within that about who I am, things maybe I need to change about myself, or I see myself getting frustrated with a project, or I see myself getting discouraged with a project, or wanting to give up on a project, for example, and taking the opportunity to reflect as, is this what I want to be? Is this how I want to act? Should this be my response of discouragement and frustration, or is it something that I just need to say, man, let's get going. Let's take a break. Let's take a pause. But let's get going back into this. Let's finish this project. Let's talk to someone. Let's find some resources. Let's talk to somebody who maybe knows a little bit more about this, and tell them where maybe we're struggling or we're having a hard time. And just even having that humility. Sometimes that's even just difficult to do. In reality, for guys, is just to have the humility to go ask and say, hey, I'm getting stuck here. Can you give me a hand with this, or can you explain this to me a little bit more, because I'm trying to get this done and I need some help. And asking for that help, I think, can just be a real way to grow relationships and grow community in just a deeper way, especially for guys. I think a big takeaway for me is I do love my computer. I love technology. I love my iPhone. This is being filmed on the iPhone. But I think that God speaks to me in mighty ways when I'm using my hands, when I have my hands in the dirt, when I have my hands on a piece of wood and shaping it, and molding it, and building something, when I have my hands in the garden and I'm out there in just His creation and doing things that I was meant to do. And I think, can you do that in a keyboard? Yeah, probably. I'm not going to say you can't, but I do believe that doing work with your hands and getting dirty getting dusty, getting sweaty. There's something about that that just brings reality just right here into such a sharp focus when I'm outside doing those things. And I do think that's part of how we were created, just even as human beings. I really do believe that. And it's not that I don't like modern technology, but I wrote this down kind of as I was preparing for this. I think the less I'm tied to modern technology, the things that maybe, and they may make my life a little bit easier. And obviously, with AI, that's supposed to make everything so much easier. Um, I don't know. I don't know in reality if that's what we were made to do, is make things easier for us. And I don't mean make things harder on purpose just to make them harder, and somehow that's the magic. I don't think that's necessarily the case, but I do think taking the time to learn a skill, taking the time to do hard work, taking the time to be thoughtful, um, does help bring reality into that sharper and sharper and sharper focus, where I'm not relying on AI or Google, or even sometimes, if you're watching this on YouTube, a YouTube video, that I'm out there just doing something, and doing it to the best of my ability. Um, that brings reality into just that much sharper contrast. And I think I'll end with this, as far as how reality is tied to durability and community and legacy. As far as durability, reality of something that can kind of stand the test of time, if you will, that's not going to fade, that's not going to just be able to be crushed or damaged or done away with easily. The reality of relationships and being in community, of how important that is to be with one another and to build each other up, especially as guys. Um, I find that more and more and more, especially as I get older. And then legacy, I think that's a false reality that we do live in, that it's really only about me. Um, Send your kids off to college, let them have their life, um, give them some advice, maybe, as they get into their young adult years, and maybe help them out occasionally. And my friend Rory Groves has written some really great material on this that I'm going to be going into in future episodes, and hopefully have him on and talking about some of these things. But legacy, man, it's not about you. It's really not. It is about you, in that you need to live in these things, I believe, and we need to live in these things. But passing these things on to our kids, living with our kids, passing these down, being intentional in expressing what is actually the case in life, what is reality, and being purposeful in that, is just, it's a lot. And I think I tended to avoid that for a long time. So I think this is one reason why I'm doing this podcast, and I'm trying to get this out. Um, I'm doing it in the form, again, of, man, let's go build stuff. It's not too late. You're not too old to start, to try and make something, to build something, to do something. Do it with your kids, do it with your family, do it with other men, and we're hopefully going to help you do that. So that's going to be it for this episode, but stay tuned for the next one. It should be up after this shortly, on durability. We're going to get into that. And this is Jake saying we'll see you next time.